Welcome to ChiroCore. Today we are actually at Core Connection Studio because we want to, instead of just talking to you about some of the chiropractic and Pilates combinations that we have been, we want to start showing you some exercises you can do at home and then some advanced settings that you can do in a Pilates with some equipment. So if this is the first time logging in, I'm Dr. Renee with Intun ChiroCare, and
I'm Kayla with Core Connection Pilates.
So today we're going to kind of continue our conversation about core muscles and chronic low back pain. This is probably one of the biggest areas that I see in my practice, and probably the majority of the patients that I've referred to Kayla have chronic low back pain. So to start, I kind of want to talk about what are the core muscles. And I know we've had a conversation about this. Every professional has a little bit different opinion in that. So for this purpose, the core muscles, we're going to talk about the diaphragm, which helps us control our breathing. We're going to talk about the pelvic floor muscles, the multifidi, which a lot of people don't know about, but they're the intrinsic muscles between each spine, and that's why chiropractic and Pilates is such a great combination. And then the transverse abdominis muscles, which are your abdominal muscles. So those for what we, for our purposes, are talking about core muscles.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So what we notice is when you have core muscles, your skeleton and your spine just cannot hold the correct posture, which puts extra pressure on the discs and the nerves, causing pain. So our goal on this is to strengthen the core muscles to keep the spinal alignment in the best place possible.
Right.
So what do you do, what are some of your thoughts for core muscles and low back pain?
Yes, so, we're actually going to show you these exercises today, but bridges is one that I love to start with because it sets people up for proper alignment. I can see kind of where their knees, their ankles, and their feet are lining up, and a lot of that starts and builds on from there. So if our feet are off, if our knees are out of alignment, our pelvis is tipped in one direction or the other, it's going to give me a good idea of what's kind of going on and how to help correct the imbalance. And bridges work all those muscles we were just talking about. So we get that deep internal scoop where we're working from our pelvic floor, getting our abdominals activated, and when we're rolling up, we're working through our multifidi. So we're working through a roll through a bridge, not necessarily just the flat back lift. So it's getting a lot more of the musculature than just a normal bridge. And working slow and controlled through the Pilates practice is also giving you a deeper insight to how we're working. So I start with bridges to get at the exact muscles we're discussing and get the core stronger.
Perfect. Should we just jump into doing bridges and show them?
Yeah,
All right, let's do it.
We're going to head over to the trap table.
Okay.
And we'll start there.
Perfect.
All right, so you can go ahead and lie down with your head at this end.
Okay.
And knees can be flat. Sorry, knees are parallel, feet are flat. And I just want you to start scooping into your 12 o'clock and just begin to lift the hips up. Good, and roll the hips down. And she already started off with a really good bridge. Her knees are staying parallel. All 10 toes are on the floor. And as she's rolling up, you're gonna see this articulation happening where she's scooping in, rolling through the spine, and articulating back down, working from the rib cage, the abdominals, and the tailbone. Could you do like a bad version where the hips are either like tipped to one side and then like the feet aren't level maybe? So this is what you probably can't see on the camera view, but her right hip is a little bit higher than her left. So I see this a lot when people come in. So what I'm gonna have her do is lift her left hip a little higher and continue when she rolls down and maintain that neutral spine. Yes, and then rolling back down. So at home, you might be able to do this by placing your hands on your hip bones. So you can go ahead and kind of wrap your thumbs to the sides and fingertips to the front. And as you roll up, you want to try to keep your hands level. And as you're rolling down, same idea, making sure that both sides are making contact with the table. And as you exhale, you're scooping in, so you're pressing the low back down, rolling up one vertebrae at a time. And as you round down, again, trying to get that articulation through the low back. Another thing I will see a lot is the feet will be like staggered. So I'm just gonna have you like slide this foot out a little bit. And again, this is a pretty big exaggeration, but you can't always tell when you're at home if you have your feet in alignment. So if you have like a broom or something that you can lie parallel and line your toes up, that's gonna help you get into a better placement. So you can go ahead and scoot that foot back in. The other thing that happens in a bridge is the knees will oftentimes bow outwards. So go ahead and start to roll up and let the knees kind of fall out towards the sides and then roll down. And that's also a very common misplacement that happens. And if we're doing that consistently, that's showing me that you're probably walking on the outer edges of your feet perhaps, and there's some weak muscle groups on the lower body as well. So that's getting beyond the core work. But a bridge, perfect setup here, working through the spine, working through those abdominals and getting active through that. I'm gonna have her place her feet in. So now this is where the equipment starts to add a nice assist, where she can actually press her feet down into the loop and roll up, and it gives her this suspension and this time to feel her alignment and then roll back down. Exactly. So the equipment here is just a nice addition to what you could do at home. It gives you a little bit more feedback, and she can now see easier her alignment of her feet, her knees, and her hips as she's rolling up. And exhale and activating through the core and rounding back down one vertebra at a time. Good, and then we'll take the feet out and you can just rock the knees side to side and just give some release to that.
And one thing I just want to add is most people that have low back pain will have a pelvic imbalance. And I think it's very helpful to have someone, like you could do the bridges on a mat at home, but have someone like you watching that to correct it. Because sometimes a lot of people don't know that discrepancy is there.
Or they don't see it.
Yes.
And I catch myself all the time correcting myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't always have someone there to show me and give me feedback.
Sure.
And I do have mirrors here, so I use them a lot for my own personal practice, although Pilates, it's more about the feeling, so we try not to use the image a whole lot in the practice. But sometimes if you do have a mirror at home, you can see are your hips level as you're rolling up, are your feet parallel, things like that.
And I think it's just a really reminder is everything is connected. You might have an ankle imbalance, you might have a knee imbalance, but with time and a continued practice, those can all be improved. Because I know when I first started, like I had one side a lot weaker with bridges, and even my bridges, like I was the one that had the hip higher and the hip lower, and now that doesn't because of the continued practice.
Right, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it's muscle memory.
Yep, for sure. So now I think we're gonna go to the reformers for some other bridges. So
you can go ahead and lie with your head here.
And so this is a more advanced version of the bridge?
So this is, yes, so there's variations you can play with on the reformers. So I didn't explain this before, but our equipment is all spring resistance. So when you're working through stuff, it's not super intense like at the gym, but it gives you a little bit more feedback. And the springs, when we go lighter, actually makes this exercise more challenging. So you're gonna start with, don't worry, it's not super light right now, but you're gonna go heels to the outer edges and your toes are gonna be slightly turned out. And we are working now with the open leg position. Before on the table we were working with the nice narrow parallel, but still here her knee, her ankle, and her toes are all gonna be in the same line, rotated out from the hips. So you always wanna make sure that the line of the rotation is still matching what the foot is doing. So you're gonna exhale, you're gonna roll up here just like you did over on the table. And you're gonna press out, good. You're gonna lower the hips down from here and bend back in. And you're gonna lift the hips up, press all the way out, lower the hips down, bend on in. So now she's getting a little bit more range. She has to suspend and hold that longer and bring it back in. Her hamstrings are gonna start to activate even more to keep that control. Good. And we'll go one more time, rolling up, pressing it out, lower the hips, and bend back in. We're going to reverse the action, so you'll press that with the hips down. Exhale, lift the hips up. You're going to keep the hips lifted as you return, closing the carriage and roll down with control. Good, and as you're going to see, this is much more challenging. She has to really work to keep those hips up until the very end, activating deeper into the hamstrings. Good, and we'll go one last time, pressing it out, lifting the hips, bending it in, and roll on down. And we're not going to show it for the sake of time today, but we would also do single leg versions. And you can do more narrow, parallel, you could do heels lifted. Just show the different foot positions maybe. So go with the toes on and the heels lifted. So she could do a bridge from here, which is going to make her hamstrings work differently. Yes, right? You feel the difference there. So we can play around with bridges a lot on the equipment and give different variations than what you would get at home. All right, and you can relax, and I'm going to show one last version on the trap table. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate one version. This is very similar to what it would feel like on the reformer, but with the foam roller. Because a lot of people do happen to have foam rollers at home, and just like we did over there, you could roll up and round back down. And it doesn't seem like it's doing a whole lot, but trust me, I feel my hamstrings working as I'm rolling up and rolling down. And then just like I talked about over there, you could do the single leg lift and lower with that as well. So that's just a nice variation to do at home if you want a greater challenge through the mat work. And then this would be the most advanced version of bridging here on the trap table. So you're starting with a roll down, which we'll talk about soon in a different video, but you're going to be rounding down, working through that placement and lifting the hips up like we practiced, taking it all the way off the table, lowering back down, still trying to drop the chin, work through the spine, and press on out. And that becomes more of a full body exercise. So we started off with the work of the alignment, feeling the core muscles getting activated, and eventually becomes a full body movement where you see my whole arms are working, my legs, and my core. So this is something to work towards, and continued practice, you could build up to this. And it's putting a lot of concepts together and exercises together to become a full-bodied practice.
And I think that's the fun part about coming in studio, is having all the different equipment to play with and the different movements that you can put together.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, it's all like a layered process. So we start with one thing, and it becomes like roll down became a part of this, and spine extension or spine stretch forward becomes a part of it, and all of a sudden you're putting 3 or 4 exercises together to combine and work through a more integrated practice as well. So that's bridging.
Yeah, that's
bridging. Do you
bridging.
have any questions or have more to add to it?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covers everything that we wanted to talk about. Always, you know, again, I'm just going to reiterate, like you have to start somewhere. And I know with low back pain, some of this stuff is uncomfortable to start with, especially when you're at home with a mat. You know, just take it slow. And if you have any questions, reach out to either one of us. If you're struggling like with discomfort working through any of these. So
yes.
I just wanted to add that. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.